Welcome to this clip on the concept of undertaking within the meaning of Article 107, Paragraph 1 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. After this video, you should be able to define the concept of undertaking under EU state aid control. You should also be able to explain what constitutes an economic activity and illustrate the concept of economic activity by means of examples. We again first turn to the relevant legal basis, to the text of Article 107.1 TFEU, which reads as follows. Save as otherwise provided in the treaties, any aid granted by a member state or through state resources in any form whatsoever which distorts or threatens to distort competition by favoring certain undertakings or the production of certain goods shall, insofar as it affects trade between member states, be incompatible with the internal market. Hence, in case the beneficiary is not an undertaking, the measure does not constitute state aid. It is therefore important to understand the meaning of the scope of the concept of undertaking. The EU courts define an undertaking as any entity engaged in an economic activity, regardless of its legal status and the way in which it is financed. Therefore, whether an entity should be regarded as an undertaking depends on the nature of its activities. Thus, whether a beneficiary constitutes an undertaking does not depend on national legal concepts such as company, non-profit association, or de facto association. It is also irrelevant whether the entity is set up to generate profit or is set up according to private or public law. Moreover, national definitions of the notion of undertaking, for example, to assess the applicability of national consumer or financial law, are irrelevant in determining whether an entity qualifies as undertaking within the meaning of EU state aid law. The broad definition of undertaking may even result in one entity being both a recipient, with regard to the financing of its activities, and a source of state aid, for example, when it finances another undertaking. Beneficiaries of state aid can separate the revenue and costs of their economic and non-economic activities to avoid the situation where state resources for a public activity are used for financing economic activities. Cross-subsidization can thus be avoided by separate accounting where costs and revenues are allocated to the relevant activity. Given the fact that an entity qualifies as undertaking when it carries out economic activities, it is important to also know what activities are considered economic. It is settled case law of the EU courts that economic activities are any activity consisting in offering goods or services on the market. There is no exhaustive list of all possible economic activities, and consequently it is necessary to assess in each individual case. Unless the member state concerned has decided to introduce market mechanisms, activities that intrinsically form part of the prerogatives of official authority and are performed by the state do not constitute economic activities. Examples of economic activities include consultancy, housing services, including social housing, and commercially selling goods or services. Examples of non-economic activities include the army, the police, air traffic and maritime safety control, and the organization of prison sentences. Other examples are discussed in the Commission notice on the notion of state aid. In summary, this clip has addressed two important concepts, the one of undertaking and that of an economic activity. An undertaking is any entity engaged in an economic activity regardless of its legal status and the way in which it is financed. An economic activity is any activity consisting in offering goods or services on the market. This brings us to the end of the clip on the concept of undertaking. Thank you for your interest and attention.